Hi, everybody. Welcome to Keeping It 100, where we have open and honest conversations to make sure you have all the information you need to make better health decisions. And so I'm your host, Dr. Krista Motley. Always glad to be here with you. Have a really good show for you today. As always, during the show, you may think of questions. So please put your questions in the chat. Dr. Tanya Thomas is here behind the scenes helping me keep track of those questions, and she'll be responding to them. She works with me at the University of the Sciences, so she is a pharmacist. She knows what she's doing. Y'all can trust her. So put your questions and comments in the chat, please. Now, before we get into today's show, I want to talk about something. During the shows, it's hard for me to keep up with the comments and the questions in the chat. And so that's why I asked Dr. Thomas to help me in the background. But after the show, we always take a look at the questions to make sure that everyone's question got addressed and answered. And on last week's show, when we took a look at the comments, someone had said something about Malcolm X and something along the lines of we can't trust the vaccines because we can't trust white people. And so I wanted to make a comment about that because I get that. I totally understand where you're coming from. But I think sometimes we give white people too much credit. I think when I think about who gets credit for the vaccines, I think about everybody that was involved. I want you to know that people all over the world was involved in trying to get a vaccine available to stop so many people from getting sick and from dying. And so I don't think about white people alone when I think about the vaccines. There were tons of Black people that were involved in the research, in the approval process, and I don't dismiss that. And so one person that immediately comes to mind for me is Dr. Kizzmekia Corbett. She is a Black scientist. She actually led the team at the NIH, the National Institutes of Health. She was the person in charge of the team that helped discover the Moderna vaccine. I think we have a picture of her to put up so you can see Dr. Kizzmekia Corbett. She is recognized for being one of the people who discovered the Moderna vaccine. She was in charge of the research team. She led that group, and they collaborated with Moderna to come out with a vaccine that is saving lives. So does she work with white people? Yes. Does she work with Black people? Yes. She works with Hispanics and Asians and Indians and people from all other of these races that were made up. So I want us to be careful about giving white people credit for things when there were other people that have been involved as well. Particularly when we're talking about the COVID vaccines, there were tons of Black scientists and doctors that were involved. I know that Black Enterprise did a story on them, and Dr. Thomas can put that link to the story in the chat. I also saw an article from Forbes, who also did a story on the Black scientists who were involved in the COVID-19 research. So there was a lot of us at the table making decisions, getting us to where we are today. We've contributed a lot to healthcare. We've contributed a lot to science. We've contributed a lot to this country over the years that we've been here. So we got to give ourselves credit as well, and being careful not to over credit other people. These decisions are not made alone. There are diverse groups at the table. Now, there are not many Black people at the table often, and I get that. And so that's why we have to encourage our children to explore these careers in healthcare and in science and in medicine so that there can be more Black people at the table making decisions and leading us through challenging times like this. And so when I think about the vaccine, I think about all of us who were there. And one thing that led me to my decision to get vaccinated, because it wasn't easy for me either. It was, I didn't want to be in the ICU and on my deathbed from COVID, from a disease that has a vaccine. I just felt like, how dumb would I look if I'm sitting here, can't breathe, my parents, my children are devastated, and there's a vaccine out here that we know works. And so that was one thing that came to my mind that kind of moved me in the direction of getting vaccinated. I was not first in line. I wasn't second. It took me many months before I decided to get vaccinated. So I understand where the hesitation comes from. But I want you to, but everyone has their own journey. So you have to think about what's important to you and what is that thing that may move you into feeling more comfortable about getting vaccinated. And please know, we were there. Black people were at the table and helping to get these vaccines available to us. And I think that a lot of what has kept us from wanting to get vaccinated is because of the information that we read on the internet. It can be scary, it can be confusing, and a lot of times it can make sense. And so that's why we're talking about, stop believing everything on the internet, because you don't know what's real unless you know that it's real. And so today is part 2 of our conversation, because we had a good talk last week. So let's bring on our special guest for today, Uncle P. I love when you come on, like you ain't know you was coming on.
How you feeling?
I'm good. How you doing today?
I'm good. I'm just getting over a cold. It wasn't COVID.
Thank you.
I repeat,
thank you for letting the people know.
It wasn't COVID, right? But getting over a cold. The cold is still out here. The regular flu and everything is still out here. So
it is.
You have to dress accordingly to the weather, right? Yes. I don't. My toes are still out. It's wintertime. It's spring now. But, you have that fluctuation between the different temperatures, and it's hot one day, it's cold the next day, it's rainy one day, it's warm the next day, it's sunny and bright outside. So, I feel like my spring cold I got through that, right? I still look forward to the spring, the summer, and the winter colds, right? So.
Well, I'm glad to hear you're doing much, much better, and you're feeling better. You're looking good.
Thank you.
So I'm glad you came camera ready for the show today.
Yeah. I had a little delay. I'm sorry. I wasn't on time. I apologize.
You ain't sorry, but it's all good.
I'm not, because it's all business. It's all business. It's all
do
relative.
What you gotta do. I get it. Trust me, I get it. So hopefully you're making some business moves so we can all be great again.
Absolutely. All
right, cool. So let's just do a quick recap from last week. Is that cool?
Okay.
All right. So last week we talked about how to figure out what information you can trust on the internet. And so I started off by explaining that anyone can create a website. Mm-hmm. Anybody can create a website. If you got a couple dollars in the bank, you pay the man and you create a website. But the only 2 websites, well, it's a few, but two of the popular websites that have to be vetted, that have to be checked before it can become a real website, like a live website, is .gov and .edu. So if you see a .gov and a .edu, it's not just anybody. That has to be checked and confirmed before those websites can become live. But .orgs, .coms, .net, .info, .anything else does not need to be checked. You pay your $15 and you got a website. Bam.
Wow.
So that's why you have to be careful when you're looking at information on the internet. People get confused and say, well, it's a .org, so it's a nonprofit and I can trust it. And last week I said that just because it's a .org, that doesn't mean that it's a nonprofit, because I have a for-profit company, and I started a .org because it was a helping company. I wasn't a nonprofit, but I still had a .org. So I'm telling y'all, anybody who has a couple dollars can pay the money, create a website, put information on the internet, and can mislead people. A lot of information is real, but a lot of information is not. And what we have to learn is how to differentiate between the two before you end up spending time reading information, putting things and ideas in your head that are just not true and that are put there to cause harm to you and not helping you, causing confusion and not helping us. So let's just take the conversation a little further by, continuing this recap a little bit. So one of the main things that I wanted you to understand was like the step-by-step process you have to take when you're looking at something online. So you go into Google and you put your search terms into Google and you get a list of articles. Once you get that list of articles, Uncle P, what do you do next?
You go and check the back name, right? Make sure it's .gov or .edu. And like I said, I didn't really know that, I should be checking out these back names, right? I just thought it's on the internet. If it's on the internet, it has
It
to be
must be
true.
real.
Like who's watching it? There's no one watching the internet making sure there's real. So, and then I had to think about how big and expansive the internet is and who would be the internet police. I guess that's just on Facebook, right? But literally, internet searches, looking things up, trying to find the facts. I read something yesterday that said the CDC is saying that the vaccine isn't working, right? And I was like, wow, like they really saying that? So I've been looking up the CDC literally. And if you don't believe me, you can check on my other phone.
Bam.
Right.
Been looking it up,
looking. I'm trying to find the truth. Right. What's really going on? So I feel like looking at things and going through the CDC.gov and understanding what they're saying, and then dissecting what I hear other people saying is important.
And I think that's a good point. So you brought up two things that I want to touch on real quick. So I know that some people have a problem with trusting the government. So if a .gov is a government, so .gov means that it came from the government. If you don't trust the government, then you may not be inclined to read that, and that's okay. But you got to find something that you trust where you can get your information from. But I want to touch on when you said that the CDC said that the vaccines aren't working. I wish I can do a screen share because we would just run through that real quick. But I'll tell you, I read something yesterday that said that the CDC said that the fourth dose. I don't know. I don't know if the CDC said it, but a report came out that the fourth dose, so the second booster, hasn't, the effectiveness doesn't last as long as they thought it did. Right. That's what I read. I don't know what you're talking about, if it's the same thing or not, but I just wanted to clarify that the latest thing I've read was that they want you to get this second booster if you're high risk, but now they're seeing that they're not, that the protection doesn't last as long as they thought it would last. And so that's a whole nother thing. But I just wanted to clarify that before people said I'm not going to get vaccinated because it's not working. Because we have years of data now, since we're like more than 2 years into this, that shows that the vaccines, if you get those, the first two doses for the Moderna and the Pfizer, or one J&J shot, that works. That works great compared to people who have no protection at all, especially when you're high risk. So I just wanted to clarify that real quick. But so you said when we're looking for something online, we put in the search terms and you're looking at the website, who is putting this information out before you start clicking on articles. Because what happened is you're putting the search terms online. If you just look at the article titles and say, that looks like it would be interesting, or yeah, I do want to read more information about that. If you just do that and start clicking away, you could be taking yourself down the wrong path, down a path that people could be writing information that's trying to trick you, that's trying to mislead you, trying to misguide you. And a lot of that is happening. And that's why we see a lot of the hesitancy in the Black community, because so much information has been put out to everybody that got everybody all messed up.
Yeah, everybody has access to the information. Everybody can dissect the information the way they see it. If you're for the vaccine and you're going to say it definitely works, look at the people. If you're not for the vaccine, you're gonna highlight the fact that there are people that have died after getting the vaccine, right? How have they died? Well, they don't talk about that, right? They just talk about the fact that the person got a vaccine and they still passed away. I feel like you could take both sides, both parts of information and run down the rabbit hole with it.
Absolutely.
And literally, unless you're talking to you, right? Because you are a medical professional, right? This is what you do. And I don't feel as though you are less educated than a person that's not a medical professional. So if I'm going to listen to someone, I'm going to listen to a person that has gone to school for this. Not only have you gone to school for it, but you are a part of our community. So then I look, and then you're also an African American, right? And then you're also in the neighborhood, and I'm like, why would she lie to me? How is she benefiting in any way by lying to me and not telling me the truth? And that was a lot of the reason why I got my first dose. I haven't got my second.
I got you. Don't worry, I got you.
But still, it's like, why would I not believe Kristen when she's sitting here telling me the facts, how she understands them? And then I look at other people that don't have a medical degree, and you're giving me medical facts, and it's like you can't do that. You can read something, but it's not necessarily the truth when you read it. You remember that game you used to play in school where you used to whisper in somebody's ear, and by the time it got around the room, it was something completely different than what you said. That's what we're dealing with right now. So listen to your medical professionals. Listen to your doctor. And I listened to the nurses. I listened to everybody there that day, and I said to myself, "Man, why didn't I get the shot?" And I said, "Well, because such and such." And I said, "Well, he ain't a medical professional." I said, "Okay, I'll get the shot. Let's see what happens, right? Get the first one." And literally, after I got it, I was listening to everybody else talking about you'll be tired and you'll be beat down. I went in the house and laid down. I went to sleep, right? Because I just knew that I was tired. But I'm like, yo, my arm was a little sore, but nothing really hurt me. So, I feel as though moving forward, I need to surround myself with medical professionals, right? So
but everybody can't do that.
I understand, but listen, that's why you're here. That's why you're on this show.
Yeah, that's
right?
true. That's true.
That's why you do this show, right? So if you have any doubts, you have any questions, put it in the post. Let's talk about it, right? Talk about it with Kristen, and she'll make sure that she hits you back and has a conversation with you so you can better understand COVID and the vaccine and everything else, right? I get it. There are certain people that don't want to trust the government, and I understand that. Right? But there's truth, and then there's bullshit. I'm sorry for cursing on your show, right?
You ain't sorry. Stop saying sorry.
But literally, when you fill your life full of bullshit, you never know what truth is. And someone is telling you truth right now and giving you truth. You like, nah, I'm not fooling with it. And it's like, how can I better take care of myself and my children if I don't take the vaccine? How and what'll happen if I get COVID? It can hit me harder than it hit the person that's standing right next to me that didn't get the vaccine. So it's an individual situation with the vaccine, but it's also a family situation, right? It's also a grouping situation. Who are you around? What types of people can be exposed to COVID and can catch COVID? What type of people can get it and be messed up? And now they on a respirator and they on a ventilator and they come out of the hospital and they survive, and then they can't run. They can't do anything anymore. So it's a lot, man. And I thank you for doing this show, because I feel as though this show is highlighting the medical professionals in our community that know what they're talking about.
Yeah. All right, good. So I appreciate that. I really do. And I do think as much as people can, connect to a healthcare provider, whether it's me or if it's anyone else, you should definitely do that. But I know that there are some people that just don't have that access. And so that's okay too, because the internet is a great place to go for information, but you have to know how to look for information on the internet. You can't just click on any link and start reading, because there are people and organizations and groups in place that want to trick you, that want to lie to you, that don't want to give you the right information, that want to keep you confused, that don't want you to be great. They don't want you to be healthy, and they'll put out a lot of information that's just not true. And so what I want you to do is learn how to look through that and get the information from a trusted place, especially not reading information from a place that can't be trusted, because that information is going to sound like it makes so much sense. It makes so much sense to put a microchip. Now, I hope I don't get famous one day and y'all take a sound bite, because I'm gonna say something that's gonna sound bad.
You're already famous.
It's gonna be a sound bite.
You're already famous. I'm a sound bite this, and it's gonna be on the show on Friday. Go ahead, say
it. Never mind. I ain't even gonna give y'all my example.
I heard that too. There's a microchip in there, and they're going to be able to control us, and they're going to turn it off when they want to, and they're going to be able to freeze you. And I'm like, that sounds so much like a movie.
But it can but
it makes sense.
It can make sense because yes, they do want to depopulate us, and yes, they do want to control our minds, and yes, they do want to do all these things. And so it'll make. I'm not getting that vaccine because they ain't going to be controlling my mind. But that was not accurate information, but it was spreading all over the internet.
Right.
And so you can't be putting this stuff into your head, because then it'll make sense and you'll follow it, and it can literally cause you to make decisions that will hurt you. You know what I mean?
You and your family. Absolutely.
Yeah. So we just have to figure out, learn. You don't have to figure it out, because I'm going to teach y'all how to find information and decide if you want to read it or not. You don't have to read everything, but there are some things you may want to read, and there are some things you may want to avoid. So so once you put in a Google search and you have the terms and you have these lists, you're going to look at the titles to see if it's something that sounds like it's what you're looking for. You're not going to click. You're just going to look at the titles. And then when you see a title that sounds like one that you want to read, then you look at the website. You're not clicking. You're just going to the website to look at it. So when you look at the website, you're going to decide from there, is this a website that I can trust? Is it a .com? Is it a .gov? Is it a .edu? Is it a .org? Who's the organization behind the website? So then you go there and take a look, and you find one that you're familiar with, so that at least you know what their position might be. So if it's blackenterprise.com putting out an article, I'm probably going to trust blackenterprise.com because I know the organization. I feel like I can trust the information that they're putting out there. So if you feel like you know the organization, you're familiar with them, you click on that article if it's the topic that you want. So again, you put in your search terms, you're looking at the titles alone. And then once you see a title, you're looking at the link to see if it's a .org, .com, .edu, and to decide if it's a .gov or .edu, you know that it is the real, that it's the government or it's a college or university that put it out. If it's a .com, .org, or anything else, you know that anybody could have put that out. It doesn't mean it can't be trusted, but you just got to know in your head that this is a website that a person paid a fee to start it.
Right.
And then from there, you decide if you want to click on it or not. So let's look at a quick example. We could go to the next slide. So we're back here at the Liberty Council because we didn't dig down deep in this one last week. So the Liberty Council posted this on Facebook. They said that the CDC said that the mRNA vaccine cannot change your DNA. However, a study in Sweden said that it can. So this is a valid question. So I want to know more about this. What's going on with this? But first, I want to know who is the Liberty Council, because that will allow me to know, to kind of get an idea of what kind of information they're about to share, like what slant, because they are either going to be for the vaccines or against, or I don't know if it's any position in the middle. I just kind of feel like most are for or against. Uncle P, what do you think? Like for or against, or is it like anybody in the middle? I don't know.
I don't know who the Liberty Council is, right? So I would have to, I probably wouldn't see this. You know what I mean? Unless I was really looking for.
It could be a paid ad though, like a paid ad could pop up.
Could pop up, right? And bad people pay for paid ads, right? People that want to miseducate and misinform, the populace, they pay for bad ads. So, I would like to know who the Liberty Council is. So I will probably look and try to look up the Liberty Council and see who they are.
Exactly. So before you read this, though, so you're not going to read this article.
And I'm going to read it. I'm going to read it.
But you got to look them up first, because
I'll look them up after I read it.
But see, the risk of doing that is reading what they say could sound like it makes sense.
It can make sense, but then once I look them up, once I look them up and understand that they're not a real company or they're not doing anything you have to be doing something to help people fight against COVID if you're against the vaccine. So if you're against the vaccine, what are you doing to help people fight against COVID? What are you telling them they should do, right? Because it's one thing to say, oh, that's bad, you spilled that milk. But if you're not giving me an end result or something that I can do to help my children, I don't care what you got to say.
But they could be giving you something that's not helpful, like telling you to take some other medicine that's not been studied or that's not helpful. So they could be giving you something, but even the thing that they're giving you is not even good.
Right.
So what I'm saying is, before you take time to read anything that an organization puts out, it would behoove you to know something about the organization. Now, I'm not saying don't read it, because, say if they are a group that is against the vaccine, I'm not saying don't read it because they're against the vaccine. I'm just saying know their position before you read it, so you know what you're going in to see.
So I see Nolan Fontaine is talking about graphene oxide. What is that?
What did he say?
Graphene oxide. So GRAPHENE oxide OXIDE. So
is that a component of the vaccine or something?
He said it was in the inoculation.
So as a possible ingredient,
right?
That may have been a question that Leslie put up. Okay. Dr. Jane Ruby, Pfizer, and revealed graphene oxide is in the inoculation. Okay, so we can look up the ingredients. I know Dr. Thomas had to jump off, but there is a link to the ingredients in the vaccine. I'm not familiar with that compound. I don't know what it causes, if it causes problems or dangerous. I would have to look that up and find out. I'm gonna do a show on the side effects of the vaccine, because I know that Nolan and others have asked questions about the side effects. So I'm definitely going to do a show to cover all the side effects of the vaccine, so we can definitely talk about that one on that show. So that's a good question. I'm not familiar with it. I have to look it up. All right, so looking back at Liberty Counsel. So again, I'm not saying don't read it. I'm just saying know who they are and, have an idea of their position before you do read it. So I could tell you that Liberty Counsel has a .org. They say that they're a nonprofit. They are an organization. They oppose abortions. They oppose same-sex marriage. They've been looking at it as like anti-gay. They sued the state of California because of their COVID restrictions. And so that's the flavor of this organization. And so when I see that, I see them as a more conservative group. They may be against the vaccines. And so I have to know that before I click on to read about what they're saying about this DNA RNA thing. And so that's what I want you all to go through, that process, is to know the organization that's putting the information out there, know something about them before you start to follow their story, because then you get caught up into what they want you to know, which could be true or which may not be true. But what I would have done if I saw something like this is I would do my own research. So I would do my own Google search to find out if there's any connection between DNA being changed from the vaccines. And so if you go to the next slide, you'll see that I did a Google search. I put in mRNA, Sweden, and DNA, because this study was done in Sweden. So, Pete, let's take a look at these search results. Which one would you click on? Oh, no, tell me the process you would do before you click on any of them.
I would read what the article is saying, right? But if it's looking for what I'm looking for, I would just I would literally click on all four of them, right?
That's what you said before.
And run in and see if it has the information that I need.
But that's what you said before.
Right.
But what else? What would be a better way? Because remember, you don't want to just put all these ideas in your head without knowing who's saying them, because it's just not a good use of time. You want to be looking at stuff that you feel like the people are going to give you real information, like straightforward, honest information.
Or the .gov or the .edu. I would look for that.
But they don't have any of those options here.
Then I wouldn't click on any of them.
Why wouldn't you click on Clark County Today. That sounds like it could be government.
It could be, but it could not be. So I will go to the CDC and type in their toolbar and find out if what they're talking about is real.
Okay, I think that's a good way to do it. So I was curious about Clark County Today.com. So can we go to the next slide? I think the next one and then another one after that. Because for a lot of people, they'll see Clark County and they'll be like, okay, this is a government website. Let's take a look at it. So I was curious. I took a look at it. And so here's what popped up when I clicked on that link, clarkcountytoday.com. I'm like, this is a news organization. They're from Clark County, wherever Clark County is. I know Georgia has a Clark County, I think. I don't know where other places may have a Clark County. But anyway, so I took a look at this website and I'm looking around to see if there's any clues that'll tell me what kind of organization this is. Again, .coms are paid for by anybody that got $12 to pay for a website. But what caught my eye here was if you look at the COVID-19 bar across toward the top of the page, there's a COVID-19 bar, and you'll see a few articles there. So it says probe finds officials miscalculated COVID death toll. All right, that's one. Wall Street analyst says COVID vaccines is the greatest fraud in history. Okay, that's interesting. And then the last one says country pays out 45 million to victims of COVID vaccines. So everything that I see here is kind of telling me that this place, to me, I don't know. Before I tell you what I think, Uncle P, what do you think?
I think they're moving the propaganda machine against COVID vaccines.
That's what it sounds like. So if I click on that article about the DNA being changed by the RNA vaccines, I'm pretty sure it's going to say something like, don't take the COVID vaccine because this is what it does, just by looking at these headlines. So now this tells me, it doesn't mean that I'm not going to read it. It just means that I know what angle they're coming at. It sounds like they're going to be against it. I'm not sure how useful this information will be to me. And if they're going, I'm trying to figure out a person that's not a healthcare provider, a person that's not sure what to do about the vaccine, if it would be appealing to read something like this, because it's not, I don't think it would be helpful in your pursuit to take care of yourself. So you can read it, but I don't think it'll be helpful for you to read it. I think it's mostly going to trick you to think that the mRNA vaccines do change DNA. So I actually looked into that just to find out if that was real or not. And I actually found out that that's not what the study said. And the study that they did was not conducted in humans. It was conducted in test tubes. And so you can't make a claim that mRNA vaccines change human DNA if that hasn't been looked at in humans. And so I wouldn't continue anymore on this page, just because I can see that they are going to be anti-vaccine. But you could have got caught off guard by this being a clarkcounty.com website. That's the point I want to make. Does that make sense, Uncle P?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense.
All right, let's go look at the next slide. Let's see what else we got. All right, so here's another thing on Facebook. I think this might have been another Facebook ad. So We Are the Resistance put this up. And this is one, you can go, yep, right there. This is one that was talking about the microchips and the nanoparticles being a part of the vaccines. And so if you saw something like this, what do you do? Do you click on it or do you do something else?
No.
Why not?
It's talking about stuff that I don't want to know nothing about.
Yeah, but it can be enticing for people that's like, see, I told you them vaccines got microchips in it. Let me read this. And then you start putting more foolishness in your head. But again, if you start off by looking at who is this organization, We Are the Resistance, and then look at the link. The link is a .tv. So again, this is one that anybody can put online. And so it's not vetted. And so you just have to be looking at these things so you can know if you can trust it or if you can't trust it, if you should believe it or if you should not believe it. And so that's the point I wanted to make about that. I wanted to make a point earlier about you saying that because I told you certain things, you felt like you could trust me because I was a healthcare provider. I wanted to add on to that and say that just because a healthcare provider says something doesn't mean you can't question it. So, and I know, Uncle P, you have had lots of tough questions for me. And so I want to encourage the listeners or the viewers or anyone watching that just because a healthcare provider says it doesn't mean you can't question it. Always question it. Always be thinking critically, because I don't think that Black people get enough credit for being critical thinkers when it comes to the vaccine, because everything was pointing in the direction for us to not get it. And a lot of us didn't get it because of what has happened in the past, because of the information that's available, because we had a president at the time who told so many lies. Like, you didn't know what was the truth and what was a lie. And so it was just a lot of confusion. And so we were just like, nope, we are not doing it. I was one of them. So I just want to say that just because a healthcare provider says it doesn't mean it can't be questioned. You should absolutely be questioning to make sure that the information makes sense, and make sure that you understand it clearly, and that you get all your questions answered. So we are out of time for today. I think what I want to do next week, we may try to look at the side effects and go into a conversation about the side effects of the vaccine. So Uncle P, you may be off the hook. I have to see what the spirit brings me, but I'm thinking we might do side effects next week so we can get some of Nolan's questions answered, because he's been asking questions since day one, and I don't think none of them got answered yet. So Nolan, we coming through for you next week. So thanks everybody for joining the show today. It's always good to be on. I hope that you found the information helpful. As always, if you have questions about the vaccines, you can always call or text me at 267-322-0470, 267-322-0470. I'm going to try to go through the chat real quick and see if I can answer some questions after we get off. But everyone have a good day, and I'll see you next week at 12:15.
Everybody be safe. Peace.